Hello and welcome to What Should You Play? This isn't going to be really a series type situation. This is just me expanding or expounding upon what classes are readily available and seeing if it can help you and aid you figure out what you want to be and do. If you're a veteran player, don't expect to learn much here. If you're a newcomer, welcome. Most of my content that I've made pretty much in some way, shape, or form is geared towards you, whether directly or indirectly. First up, let's start off with Hunter. Yes, it takes a while to get speed with this thing. And yes, it has the best defense. It even has a block for a weapon action. And I'm assuming not just the sword, but when you get to your wired lance and your partisan in the full version of the game, you will have a plethora of techniques that allow you to hit multiple enemies all at once, not necessarily what's directly in front of you. In fact, all of the photon arts, besides being chargeable in the open beta test with the sword, have a giant range extension based on how long or if you charge them up. So yeah, pretty much never expect to hit only one thing at a time in this game if you're using a close combat class. Now some pros for this are, well, that damage though, and the ability to scale up how much damage you're doing based on your charge attacks. And of course your block being very, very good. On average, expect to have whittled off 15 to 50% of what damage you would have taken. However, take that with a grain of salt because I didn't have time to go through proper calculations, and of course, everything's subject to change in an MMO / let alone an open beta test. Now some cons, well, your highest damage is slow to come to you. Remember when I said everything charges? Well, yes, that wasn't a joke. That was not even close to hyperbole. Practically every photon art that you have in your list has a charge ability. It will get you more damage, but is someone going to sit there and let you do it? And remember, while you're charging, your block is turned off. You possibly move the slowest out of almost every single class in the game. But also, factor in you got a dash button. So is that really a problem? You decide. Yes, you. Next up, we're going to do Techter. Now, I know some people like to acknowledge the second T in Techter, but I don't live in that house. I saw that house. It was shitty. The Techter pretty much does all the same magical, whimsical tekuniku spells that the Force does, much like in previous iteration PSO 2 regular. But please keep this in mind. This class actually has defense, or rather, it is good at gaining defense. Is it the best in technique? Obviously not. That title still belongs to the Force. After many, many decades on top, its reign of terror and magic held from above and afar is not ending anytime soon. However, you do have the added bonus of having 2 photon arts, and one is for area damage and one is for concentrated close point damage. And you can change the element of your physical attacks just by charging up a spell, already verbatim at the beginning of the game. So the real question to ask yourself is, do you want to just do magic, or do you want to do magic and also have the potential to do a decent chunk of physical damage? Obviously, the range extension is going to come from the talisman, which is usually abbreviated to Talus in the game, and it also creates 360-degree Gi-like, as in Gi, which is a common denotator in PSO for spells that go out in a 360-degree or wide area, even if it's a solo spell, just by keeping the talisman cards close to you. They showed some footage of this off in the prologue 3 or 2, I believe, so feel free to overlook that because talisman was not readily available in the beta, so I can't provide you any of my talisman footage. However, your attacks are slow, your physical attacks. So you're not necessarily the master of close range magic, you're just a jack of all trades, master of none. You can hit from afar, you can hit from up close, but you're not doing the best from afar and you're not doing the best up close. Think of it kind of sort of like a red mage situation, but with, a big ass club that they call wand, but I don't know why. You obviously use the damn thing like a hammer. I'm just saying. But maybe that's just me. The cons to this class, however, you're slow. You're like Hunter's slow. In fact, I do believe that your normal attack is slower than the Hunter's, but also you don't have any combat combo extensions. So basically, your close range stuff is limited to 2 things. Did you change the element on the wand / hammer? And did you do the photon blast attack, which is like a 6 or 7 hit combo with the wand? That's basically it. Now your magic, like I said, can technically outdo the force as far as range go due to the talisman having the effect of basically doing magic from afar or increasing the distance and range. But again, factor this. It's reduced. Far more reduced than what it would be if you were just using that magic on a rod and being a force. So like I said, jack of all trades, master of none is both a pro and a con. Moving on to one of my personal favorites, or really two of them, Fighter. It's exactly what it sounds like, or what you can surmise. Fighter is a faster and superior speed attacking version of a hunter. Most of his weapons involve using two hands and swinging as fast as possible, but also your evasion technique is far, far superior. Not to mention, when you get twin daggers, for some illogical reason, which I'm not complaining about, you gain anti-gravitic properties. So most of your combos or your special abilities are going to revolve around you being able to have air superiority or doing combos from the air. Not to say that you can't do anything on ground, but if it's anything like PSO 2 regular, expect to be in the air and expect to enjoy it whilst using the twin daggers. Now the double saber has obviously got the best reach as far as range, close range weapons go. I don't know what you would consider the wired lance for the hunter. Maybe that's medium range, but your class inherently is very, very good at continuous damage and evading, and you've got some of the, for lack of a better term, flashiest photon arts in the entire game. I'm very curious what they're going to put on the skill tree for this class in the future, because let's be honest, if it's this fun already and we only got it to level 15 max, I can't imagine what's going to happen if the default max level is something like 30 or 40. What a wonderful time to be alive. Not to mention, you also have a bonus weapon action when you use the knuckles. You have one for your traditional dodge encounter like every other class, or parry attack, and you also have a weapon action based parry attack. Despite the natural attack power of almost everything on the fighter's tree being beneath the sword or the hunters, you hit more than they do, and you hit more frequently. So you got to ask yourself, do you prefer single hit high damage or high damage over time? However, let's get into those cons. This is a hyperactive class. You need to always be paying attention to what's going on your screen. So if you got enough effects on and there's too many people around you and you can't really interpret what's going on, you may find yourself getting mollywopped out of nowhere just because you couldn't interpret what you were seeing. Other than that, the only true other cons of this class is the extremely short range, but you knew that going in, so whether or not if that's a con is really up to you. And the final thing, and this may be more of a personal con or personal gripe, but let's be honest, all pros and cons are personal. If you stop thinking about it, the shit's relative. It always bothered me that your highest damage on this class in both PSO 2 and now New Genesis is carrying over. Initially called Limit Break, but now called Over Limit. It reduces, or rather it multiplies how hard you hit and how hard your enemies hit you. So if you got 300 HP, you want to do the strongest possible thing you can do as a fighter, and also the strongest photon art, you better start praying you can get it off. Because now if a side enemy or somebody a third the target strength hits you, maybe 2 or 3 times, you're dead. No joke, you're just dead. I hope you got some scape dolls. High risk, high reward, thy name is Fighter. And on to my other favorite, which I used to combine into Fight Gunner, and I think that I'm going to be able to do again. Yay. Gunner. Gunner is basically John Woo in Phantasy Star Online. Blink, blink, but who's that? Okay, let's try another one. Gunner is basically Dante from Devil May Cry if he could only use his handguns and a rifle in gunslinger mode. You backflip, dodge, shoot. You front roll, dodge, John Woo, shoot. You side flip, Matrix, John Woo, dodge, Dante, shoot. Everything you can think of, you can do, you want to do, you can do here. Your normal attack can hit from a distance. However, it does have a bit of a pause in between it. Also, with modifications and going down your skill tree, you can actually increase your photon art animation speed. And they've altered your damage multiplier known as chain trigger. In this iteration, you charge up 1 photon art to the maximum level and then you hit an enemy with it to activate the chain. But now, guess what? You can still hit them with photon arts as long as you don't charge them to build up meter. So now you can build up your meter faster than you ever could in Phantasy Star Online 2 solo, because now you can go and do a photon art that's got the fastest shooting speed, which can all cancel or have multiple cancel spots, and keep repeating the rapid fire animation to it, which I did, and you can get the chain trigger to 100 in less than 20 or around 25 seconds. That's impressive and that's beautiful. And the minute you activate it, you go into sped up photon art animation mode. I honestly really didn't find any cons with this class. If you like guns, you like jumping around, and you don't want to do something that's going to look extremely boring like standing perfectly still and shooting from a distance, Gunner is made for you. It's almost a parallel between Hunter and Fighter and Gunner and Ranger, which we're going to talk about next though. But as far as cons with the Gunner, the closest I can think of to a con is that you have to wait a long time to build up your best damage or get your boosters up. Remember, in order to turn on the photon art animation speed increase, you have to have chain trigger. But guess what? Speed is based on how big your count is. So if your combo count is under 50%, you're not going to get as much animation speed boost as you would if you had it at the max of 100%. So the closest I can tell you to a con is just that it takes a long time combat wise to build up to your maximum damage potential. And do you care or not? Next up, Ranger. Ooh boy. Let me just start off by saying I don't favor any class over another in particular this early. But I will say this, Ranger is very, very plain and homely to look at. So if you're one of those people who want to contribute, you want to be a damage dealer, but you don't want to be in the fray, you want to be able to relax, not have to move your hands around so much, Ranger's your bet. There are people who've claimed, and I'm almost inclined to agree with them, but we ain't got no hard numbers yet, that just shooting your normal attack almost does more damage than most of your photon arts do. Now, the main reason I don't subscribe to that theory, or rather the main reason I don't follow that, is because I think it's situational. That's a situational accurate statement. If you have a full photon point gauge and you've done stat boosters to increase the amount of photon points you get, which is what you need to do your special attacks, and you do the rapid fire special attack, I believe it's called parallel slider, which lets you move around and shoot faster than your normal attack, and then it ends it when you let go of the button with the finishing bullet. I don't know if that's the actual name for it, if it has an actual name. You're going to be doing more damage than someone who hits the normal attack button in the same amount of time. But say you do that move when you only get like half your photon points, you might as well just shoot them the normal way. Also, there are a lot of special abilities and features that do damage on this class that are meter based or timer based and have a cooldown where other classes do not. Don't get me wrong, other classes have something on their skill tree that has a cooldown, but it's usually not this long, or it's just one thing. Half the shit you can do with a Ranger is damn near on your hotbar with a cooldown. Case in point, you have the ability to both plant a landmine grenade, even though it's floating in the air, or do a missile type bullet shot. It's mapped to your weapon action button. It's got a cooldown. You have the ability to do a shotgun photon art type skill. Not sure on the correct name for skill, photon art skill. There was a discussion about this in a Discord group I was in too. But here's the thing. You had a shotgun shot ability in PSO 2. That wasn't a cooldown. The only difference between that one and this one, besides the animation, is that it shoots twice instead of once. That's it. You can still, there's no guarantee it's going to hit. There's no guarantee how much spray damage the enemy's even going to hit based on their size and how far they are apart from you. But there's a cooldown on it, or a meter build situation going on to it, on top of the photon blast. And I'm just sitting up here like, why is this type of bullet? Why are bullet types skills versus having special bullets? They just said, you know what? Special photon arts or altered photon arts that do different shot properties. You know what? Let's put them on the hotkey bar. Why is that there? And that's the biggest con I can think of. For every single feature and technique you got, which, you know, adds to your toolkit like you Batman or something, you gotta wait on it to use it again. whereas other classes don't have that issue as much. And what really chaps my hat, if you can call it that, is the damage difference is not even really fucking worth it. I landed my grenade weapon action photon art skill thing with the cooldown almost 80% of the times that I shot it off. But the damage was equivalent to about 4 or 5 normal attack button presses. But now I have a 15-second cooldown, and that cooldown specifically on the weapon action only shows up when you try to reactivate the floating mine, I'll say floating mine, or the missile shot again, instead of just being readily made available and visible like on literally every other class. I don't know why the fuck they did that. I really don't. Moving on. Lastly, those who are not Jedi but utilize the Force. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually happy with how they approach the Force's normal attack. It's basically an energy blast that homes in on somebody and it shoots out pretty fast. The issue I have with it comes out too damn slow. Now, this class has no physical attack photon arts, which I'm not sure if I think that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. But anything it does, it'll be the best at when it comes to unleashing Tekuniku and Magiku. So, is that a good trade-off? And that's what you have to ask yourself. And one of the best pros, and one of the things I'm jealous about, not the elemental damage, but I don't know if anyone caught this or not, but so far as it stands, at the time of me saying this, Force is the only class that can almost indefinitely always be charging its photon point gauge, with the exception of when you go into your photon dash. Maybe people didn't notice it, but your gauge actually starts filling up when you go into the super dash. So, when you're charging up, you can still move around and you can build meter. Of course, you got to get the stuff from your skill tree. When you do your block, shield, aura thing, you can still potentially get you some meter. When you dodge something and activate your counter or parry attack, you can still be getting meter. You can never not be getting photon point meter gain with this thing. Imagine doing the strongest spell in the game, charging it all the way up, but you wait to use it until you've got all the photon points you lost back. Yeah, and they're the only ones that can do it. Now, is there a con? Yes, there's always a con, but not many. When it comes to cons, your defense is hot booty garbage, but stereotypes included, we know that's going to happen. The person who can do the highest amount of damage with the least amount of effort is going to be somebody who can get too touched up or mollywopped. Yes, I'm still trying to bring back mollywop. Fuck you. Who can get mollywopped as soon as they catch any hands. You blink in their directions, they laid out and splayed out. However, another con, again, this is debatable, cons are relative. You have no photon art abilities. Are you supposed to? Well, that's up to Sega. But if you stop and think about it, if they just made photon arts that took technique damage and not physical damage, why can't we have them? Also, let's not forget, Techter uses magic too, but guess what? It's got 2 photon arts. You don't have any as a Force. Will this change in the future? I hope so. Currently, at this time, we're not really sure what the secondary weapon, if there is one, is going to be for Force. I would like to think that at least every single class gets 2 weapons, if not 3, but I'm not making any promises, and I'm not going to assume that. I want that to happen. But at this time, we haven't seen hide nor hair of anything that could possibly be connected to the Force. And if memory serves, in their first and second prologue explanation translated, they did state that when they showed off the entire weapon tree or weapon list, there was basically nothing else for Force but the rod. So the question is, how specialized do you like being? And do you care if you're super heavily specialized leaning in one direction? Okay, with that being said, feel free to use the screenshots of the skill tree that I have on screen. And I will see you guys in the full game. Y'all have a nice day.